So this is a topic that a lot of designers get really upset about because whenever there's a new logo or rebrand refresh, the internet goes crazy, especially designers who talk about the aesthetics of it. You know how I feel about that, but I'm actually going to talk about aesthetics on this episode. One logo that I think is totally garish for a company that knows better, that deserves better, that's, I believe, a multi-billion-dollar corporation is, okay, cover your ears, Under Armour. Okay, let's talk about the Under Armour logo. If you're not familiar with it, I'll do my best to describe it for those of you that are listening to this. Under Armour logo is two half ellipses that overlap and intersect, and they're flipped upside down. So you can see the X in it, so it's cool to see the letter X. That letter X is super sexy, so good idea there. And it's really a U and an A overlapping. This is one of those logos where you think, okay, great idea. I can imagine being in the board of directors, chief marketing officer, where the branding design firm presents this thing. It's like there's a U, there's an A, and there's an X in it, and it's like the X factor of Under Armour. Isn't that cool? What a terrific idea. And everybody applauds and said, let's just adopt that. And this is one of those moments where the idea could be so strong where you can approve it beyond the aesthetics. For me, the aesthetics of this mark is horrific. Like, I don't know much about the company. I actually own some Under Armour clothing, and I almost want to remove the logo. So the first thing is, does it pass the basic aesthetic test? If anything, the simpler your logo is, the easier it is to pass this test. And the more ornate or tricky or clever that you want to make it, this is where it gets really challenging for people. So you can love the idea so much that the aesthetics of it actually takes a second seat. This is one of those ones where there's an idea of form and function. So maybe the function of it is really cool, but the form is just, I hate to say it, it's like ass, you guys. I know I'm being a bit of a design snob here, and I'm not saying that I have a better opinion or taste or aesthetic level than you, but whenever we go out in the world and we're going to wear something where the logo is very prominent and it's part of like the tribe that we join, it's kind of the symbol that we can rally behind, it's got to look good. And so there are companies I know nothing about. I don't know the brand story, the founder story, or anything like that, and I see it. And what draws me in as a visual person, as a person who's really keenly tuned towards the design, I see it and I think this is worth an investigation. And when we're thinking about it, what is the purpose of any marketing or design effort? It's to bring in new customers and to keep the existing customers really happy. So I think here, the job of the logo designer, especially when it comes to apparel, merchandising, it's really, really important that it look good, that it follow universal principles of design about harmony, balance, ratios, all those kinds of things, that it look good when it's scaled down small, that it's not overly complicated, and it's very versatile. It can be used for a lot of different applications. It can be used, maybe repeated as a pattern for a shirt, or deconstructed for a shoe or a headphone. That's how you know that the logo's really good. And sadly, if you agree or disagree with me, that's why I think the Under Armour logo is butt. So one thing when you're designing a logo is to try it on multiple applications as a mock-up. Put it on a uniform, put it on a truck, a plane, put it as wrapping paper or tape for a box that you're going to ship out. Try to find as many applications for as possible, and it needs to pass a few things. Number one, is it still recognizable? Is that iconic? Is it appropriately sized for its use? Some things look really good small, but when scaled up look terrible. So then sometimes you have to design a more responsive logo so it can actually have multiple configurations or slight enhancements or modifications to it so that it looks good at all sizes. But here's the thing, does it feel like it's going to get tiring to look at, like you're going to get visual fatigue from it? Does it inspire you? And this is the hardest test of them all, which is, does someone who has a good sense of taste and aesthetic, which we're not all born with, and some of us never can find that, you need to bring in the people who have good taste and say, like, Johnny, Mary, do you like this? And tell us what you like or don't like about it. And now here's one test. If you build a mood board with all the brands that you love that have withstood the test of time. So I'm thinking nothing that's like younger than 10 years old, preferably 30, 50 years old, because now you know it's survived a couple different shifts in design and trends. Put your logo and your mock-up next to a board full of like great brands that you love and admire. If it looks like it belongs there, you've done a great job. Say you have a bunch of tastemakers and you're not getting consistent feedback across the board. I think you're running the risk here. And unless you're like a really forward bleeding edge kind of company, it's not a risk that you want to take. Ideally, when you create a logo, it begins a story that you don't want to change. It can evolve, but you don't really want to change it, because changing it means all the brand equity, all the recognition that's built into it, you're going to have to start over. Take, for example, this was hot and controversial a while ago, the F1 logo. So the F1 logo has existed for a really long time, and then they decided, you know what, it looks really dated. We're ready to do something different. We want to do something modern and sleek. And then it seems like all the fans of F1, the automotive enthusiasts, the logo geeks and those types, they came out of the woodwork to say this is a terrible logo. But 5, 6 years later, it's quieted down massively and now no one complains about it. But you run the risk of alienating a lot of people and having people talk about your company and your logo in not such a good way. That's not good PR.
Real quick, before I forget, this video is brought to you by us, the Futur. Are you ready to kickstart your creative career and build a business doing what you love? Whether you're just starting out or you're switching careers or starting something new with decades of experience, we can help.
Accelerator is your fast track to building a killer portfolio and landing those dream clients.
You'll get training and experience on everything from lead generation and building your network to closing the sale and project management.
With over 100 video lessons, weekly coaching, and personalized feedback from the Futur team,
you are never alone in Accelerator. Want to learn more about the coursework, community, and coaching you'll get as an Accelerator member? Get all the details at thefutur.com/accelerator. We'll see you there. All right, let's get you back to the video.
So let's talk about trends, and should you be ignoring them or embracing trends? When people use the word trend, they misuse it. What they mean is fad. And we're not quite sure when something pops on the zeitgeist of pop culture that is it a fad or is it a trend? You do want to stay with trends. What is trends? Well, trends is like equality, inclusion. Those are not fads. But a fad could be using certain elliptical shapes that were on trend for a hot minute and then went out of trend just as quickly. Or frozen yogurt, that seems to come in cycles every 10, 15 years. So you don't want to grab that and then realize later on like, oh, those bell-bottom pants don't look so good on me now. Okay, they were trendy, but it's not following trends. And so when you are chasing something, take a step back and ask yourself questions like, why am I doing this? Is it because it just seems like what everybody's doing? And if that's the case, I would just avoid that, because the worst thing that you want to do is to do what everyone is doing. The whole point of identity is to be unique and to be different and to be slightly weird, if anything else. So following the trends is not a great way to do that. Now, here's something that I've learned through years of design and just studying design. The people who have figured out design, the masters of design who were in Switzerland and Germany many, many years ago, decades ago, have figured out what works. They follow certain golden principles of ratios, harmonies, certain geometric shapes that just work. And when you look back at these marks that were created so many years ago, they withstand the test of time. And so everybody's trying to reinvent the rules. I don't think you need to reinvent them. You just have to find the right application for what it is that you're doing. So rather than be so weird and unique in breaking all the rules, be weird and unique in your application of the rules. So if you're listening to this and you're a corporation and you're thinking about starting something or rebranding, here's what I would advise that you do. First, I would consider looking at 2 or 3 companies that do this on the regular, that this is their primary focus. And what you want to do is look at their body of work, their portfolio, if you will, to see if you see your future in there. We tend to think that if you can design something, you can design me anything, and that's the problem. I've made this mistake before, to look at gaps in the portfolio and think, of course they can figure this stuff out. But what I wind up usually getting is more of what they've already done. So this is both good news and bad news, because if they have a long track record of doing something that you like, there's a high probability that they're going to do that thing again for you. So if you don't see it, I would say, you know what, use caution, perhaps look at other firms. And then interview these firms and ask them about their creative process. And the question I like to ask creatives is this: tell me what the ideal client working relationship looks like to you, what has happened, where does it go wrong, and how does this work in your mind? And then just let them talk themselves in or out of the job. Oftentimes they reveal that they have no process. They're approaching every single problem as a brand new thing, and that's not a good thing for you. And if you're thinking about using ChatGPT or one of these generative AI engines to make you a logo, I would ask you to reconsider what you're getting. A logo isn't just a random collection of marks and shapes put together by a machine. And although aesthetically it can look very pleasing, you're not just buying the mark. Because at the end of the day, if you showed me an award-winning logo and asked any capable designer, can you draw this logo? Of course they can draw you the logo. That's not the point. The reason why companies pay creatives a lot of money, we're talking about tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands, is because they're making a big decision and they want to do their due diligence diligence. So large agencies and design firms will go and do research. They'll do a competitive analysis. They'll go into the history of your company. They're going to look at things that unless you can prompt an engine to do this, it's not going to happen. So it's not about the formal qualities, like what it looks like. It's all the research that they do to arrive at a conclusion so that you can feel confident that it's worthwhile for you to now spend hundreds of thousands, if not millions of dollars, replicating this logo across multiple touch points. We're a pretty small company. Every time we change one thing, the color palette or a secondary typeface, it has massive implications across the few applications that we have. And just to think, if a company like ours was 1,000 times bigger, what that would mean, what kind of headache that would be. And so then you're cycling out and rotating out legacy applications and logos to replace it with the new thing. This is an expensive endeavor. So when we sit there and we debate like, oh yeah, we'll just like hire GPT for $1 to recreate this logo. You can, but you're missing the whole point. And that's the thing that a lot of creators don't understand. All right, I hope you enjoyed this format, but I'm really honestly looking for your genuine feedback. Let me know. And if you've enjoyed this, please share it with someone who needs to listen to this.